The Dogman. Reported since the late 80s. Half man, half dog, but with a human scream. What is it? Does it really exist? Or is it just a myth? Something made up. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and let's experience 5 encounter stories of this being. A demonic figure. The story goes back many years. I was probably 5 at the time, and I am 25 now. It was 20 years ago. Anyways, this story is about me seeing something that looked like a dog standing up. The day was normal, from what I can remember. I had been into town with my father buying some shopping, I think. Eventually, when we got home, I went to my room to play with my toys. I was upstairs for maybe 20 minutes, and I come back down for a sandwich. I remember my dad had made me a tuna and sweet corn sandwich. Delicious. Anyways, I remember sitting on the couch watching some TV. I then remember looking at the living room door. Then the door opened. Now, this is gonna sound very silly, but what I saw was very real. As the door opened, I saw a man-dog standing in the doorway. Now, this ghostly apparition didn't move. It had its head held high, but was looking at me, hard to explain, sort of using its peripheral vision. It had old raggedy clothes covering its body and was very hairy. I also remember its mouth, full of sharp teeth. Now, I know that this experience happened 20 years ago, but I still remember the fear that I felt. See, the way this ghost demon was looking at me, it came across as hate. What I mean by that is, even though it looked like it really didn't like me, I also sensed that this being really hated me. I still remember my stomach drop when this horrible hairy beast stood there. The funny thing was, as quick as it started, it was finished. This incident lasted about 30 seconds, and it was over, but long enough to get an eyeful. In the past, when I've heard things, maybe a voice or something move, I never know if it's this animal or man or demon that's doing it. I've heard a deep distorted voices in my past too. Maybe it could be this Dogman. Who knows? Anyways, I hope you like my story. I'll be posting more soon. Dogman encounter. So I mentioned this earlier in a reply to something, then figured I might as well post it since I brought it up. I live in the northwestern side of Michigan, and we have this legend called the Dogman. It's basically like a werewolf type thing. You can read about it here for a more extensive explanation. http://wikipedia.com/Michigan_Dogman. I was 9 years old when this happened. At that point, I still shared a room with my sister, and so my bed was on one wall with a big window on the opposite side. My sister's bed was right underneath that window. We were on the first floor of the house, but we live on a hill, so it's slanted, so it's still a pretty high window, 9 feet off the ground maybe. Anyways, I woke up one Saturday night feeling really thirsty. It was about 2 in the morning, and everyone else in my family was asleep. I was about to crawl out of my bed to go to the bathroom just down the hall when I looked at the window and froze. At the very bottom of the window, there was a really dark shape. It looked kind of like the top part of a Siberian husky's head. It was a big thing with 2 points that looked like ears on the top. I couldn't make out any other features, so while I was still scared, at first I just thought it was a reflection of the pillows at the end of my sister's bed. And then it moved. You know how dogs kind of twitch their ears and perk them up when they're trying to hear better? That's what this shape did. The 2 points that I took for ears twitched and then came back into place. and it wasn't a subtle movement at all, so I knew it wasn't just a reflection. The Dogman story is really big here, and we live right in the woods, so I immediately thought of that. I got really scared then, so I did the typical kid thing and pulled the covers over my head and went back to sleep without getting my water. In the morning, there was nothing outside the window, and no marks on the side of the house or anything. No evidence that there had been something there at all. The thing that really stumps me is wondering how anything would manage to stay up by a window that's 9 feet off the ground in the first place. Since I was 9, I do accept that it was possible I just imagined it. I already knew the Dogman story, so maybe I was just scared to begin with, and that fear kind of manifested itself like that. At the same time, I really do believe that there was something outside the window, Dogman or not. Ape Man or Dogman? Figured I'd make this one a top level comment. I even hit up my dad to make sure I got the details right. When I showed my dad the wiki article, he had never heard of the Michigan Dogman, but he does say it sounds like he could have had an experience. Summer 1973. My dad had just graduated from high school, and he and a bunch of friends had gone up north, a ways outside of Traverse City, Michigan. His friend Susie, their family had a cabin out on a lake up north. There was a group of about 10 to 12, 17 to 19-year-olds all hanging out and drinking beers and celebrating the summer. The group of them were having a bonfire out on the beach when Susie got up to go to the bathroom. My dad's friend, Mike, offers to walk her there, and as they're walking the 50 feet from the beach bonfire to the cabin, Susie notices a dark shadow much further up the road, near the tree line. Susie points it out to Mike, and Mike looks and says they should hurry up because he thinks it might be a bear. But Mike pauses for a moment as this creature continues to lope closer towards the cabin, but not a way that indicated its destination was the cabin. He notices it isn't nearly big enough to be a bear and thinks it may be a wolf of some sort. Susie comments that it doesn't look furry enough and maybe it has mang or is rabid. As they're walking closer to the cabin, the creature meets a break in the tree line and becomes more visible in the moonlight. That's when Mike calls my dad and another guy over, and they see what appears to be a very hairy, naked man loping down the gravel road on all fours at a pretty decent clip. They send Susie back to the bonfire to be with the rest of the group, and they decide to chase the fucker. They start booking it towards this creature. When it sees them heading for it, the creature starts backing up the road and across the clearing. Now my dad ran track, as that was the best shape of his damn life, a bit drunk, and he couldn't match the damn thing as it barreled down a gravel road on all fours. It reaches the tree line and leaps up a clear 10 to 15 feet into a tree. At this point, a bunch of the beach kids had run over to where the boys all were, and there, they all saw this weird ape man, as my dad always described him, sitting in the middle of a spruce tree that had somehow managed to jump up into and climb while butt-ass naked. They toss some beer cans and rocks at the thing and kind of just aggravate it for a few minutes in the darkness, when suddenly it emits this horrifying scream. My dad says it's the most blood-curdling noise he'd ever heard, and it sounds halfway between the bark of a dog and the bleat of a sheep, and it was loud. After it makes this noise, it starts shaking and sort of jumping in the trees, and then jumps out and books it into the woods. My dad still swears to me that this story is true, and Mike has confirmed at least pieces of the story he can remember. As adults, me and my dad has discussed our theories, and I just assumed it was a burnt out hippie that had taken too much acid, and my dad says it was rare in that area of Michigan in '73. I'd also like to stress that me and my dad have never heard about the Dogman. He really liked that song, by the way, and we had always called him the Ape Man. MONKEYMAN. Holy shit. My little brother, who was in his mid-20s at the time, came home one night and told us about the sighting of the MONKEYMAN. Now, this is a guy who is not easily rattled and not one to tell stories. He had been out at a friend's house, not drinking or using drugs, and had driven home just about 11 p.m. through backcountry roads. He described what he saw looked like a MONKEYMAN, tallish, scrawny, with the general shape of a human but very furry and with the head and face of a monkey. He said he drove up to it and slowed down to see it eating something. Roadkill? On the road. It paused, looked towards the car, then ran away into the woods on all fours, like a monkey would. My little brother was visibly shaken and not amused at all. Same thing as a Dogman? We're in the middle of Lower Peninsula, by the way. A really odd Goatman-Dogman encounter. Surely you've heard of Dave Paleeds and his Missing 411 books? He mostly talks about Bigfoot, and in one particular interview, he mentions the tale of a child who had gotten separated from her parents, and when she was found, her story greatly differed from all the others. She told her parents a Dogman had found her, had laid with her to rest, had given her berries from his paw, and then led her back to her family. This was the first time I heard anything suggesting werewolf-type cryptids in the wild, and since then, I just stumble on more and more. This brings to mind an incident with my little sister and I. She was 16 at the time, myself, 24. We were on a fairly placid highway through the Valley of Fires in New Mexico. As we rounded one corner, we both looked left in time to see a gray, salt and pepper fur-covered, very tall, very muscular man with the characteristic dog legs, same bends. We screamed, I swerved, and we both thought instantly that we had seen a goat man, yet there were no horns. Some goats don't have horns, so he didn't seem swayed by that detail. He was wearing some clothing, in fact the most notable thing being baggy denim shorts. I know that sounds ridiculous, believe me. She and I were dumbfounded as to how and why something so wild-looking could be wearing clothes. It was late afternoon, around 4 p.m., and he didn't hurry when he came into view. He sauntered on normally, as though he didn't care if he were spotted. He didn't even look at our car, despite my erratic driving when we noticed him. I drive by that spot regularly, on commutes for the doctor, and I've never seen him again. There's a small bluff right there, with beautiful rocks and a tall stack that would have taken 3 or more human males to lift and stack the way they were situated. I always see it, and figured it had to be Mr. Wolfman who did it. Goatman simply makes no sense anymore. New Mexico is infamous for its Goatman stories, so we assume based on that idea, planted by local history,